3 bone-chilling true horror stories to haunt you at 3 a.m. alone forever in a quiet town where shadows crawled and the wind howled like a lost soul. Whispers of horror wove through the streets like a dark fog. People there spoke in hushed tones about the ancient house at the end of Willow Lane. This wasn't just any house, it bore the weight of a dreadful truth. Those who dared to enter would often stagger out, faces pale, eyes wide with terror. Some said they saw figures moving behind curtains that hadn't been touched in decades. Others claimed to hear laughter haunting, chilling laughter echoing in the dead of night. One cold October evening, a brave soul named Molly, with heart pounding and gut twisting, challenged the legends. She strode up the cracked path, leaves crunching underfoot like brittle bones, and pushed open the creaky door that groaned like a sleeping giant disturbed. Inside, dust filled the air, swirling like restless spirits, and the musty scent of abandonment clawed at her throat. But it was the silence that unnerved her most. It clung to her like a wet blanket, heavy and suffocating. The shadows seemed to pulse, alive and waiting. Then, out of nowhere, a loud crash echoed from the upper floor, splitting the stillness, making her heart race faster than ever. Molly's breath quickened, each exhale a ragged whisper of uncertainty. She was no longer just brave, now, she was terrified. Did she really want to delve deeper into this darkness? As she hesitated, the whispers returned, faint at first but growing in urgency. They called her name, beckoning her to discover the truth buried within those walls. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a mixture of dread and intrigue, Molly decided to climb the staircase that spiraled upward, each step creaking ominously beneath her weight. What awaited her at the top? She could almost feel the stares of those unseen eyes watching, tracking her every move. Was she fully alone? A cold breeze swept through the hallway, making the hair on her neck stand like a field of startled daisies. She pushed open a door to a room bathed in a sickly green glow from a dusty lamp. The air hung thick with something rotten, making her stomach churn. But it was the mirror that caught her attention, a massive, ornate piece glimmering with an odd shine. As she approached, Molly's heart skipped. Looking into the glass, she didn't see her reflection but someone else, eyes glowing with malice. Who was it? What did they want? Molly stumbled back, panic flooding her veins. Her mind raced. Was this the price for uncovering dark secrets? And just as she turned to flee, the door slammed shut behind her with a deafening thud. The laughter rose again, echoing through her very bones. What horrors lay in wait for her as the shadows closed in? Would she escape this time, or become just another whisper in the haunted stories of Willow Lane? Molly's heart drummed wildly in her chest, drowning out the eerie sounds that enveloped her. She pounded against the door, desperate, pleading for it to yield to her frantic push. The laughter stopped suddenly, replaced by a chilling silence that wrapped around her like a vice, squeezing tighter with each passing moment. A low, raspy whisper snaked through the air, sending icy fingers down her spine. Stay with us. She spun back to the mirror, compelled by something she couldn't understand. It beckoned her with an allure that felt wrong, a primal instinct twinging in her gut. The reflection, warped and sinister, showed a place that twisted her sense of reality, a dark version of the room around her inhabited by shadows that danced maliciously. They beckoned her closer, their forms moving in rhythmic patterns, a macabre ballet played just for her. No, she screamed, blood pounding in her ears. Let me out. With one last surge of strength, she hurled her body against the door. It rattled, then fell silent. Her breath caught had it opened. But it didn't. Instead, the mirror pulsed, and the sinister figure leaned closer, its eyes glinting like shards of ice. Join us. It coaxed, its voice reverberating in her mind. Molly stumbled back, tripping over a carpet worn to threads, and tumbled to the floor. The thud sent a shock wave through her. A cackle erupted from the shadows, as if they reveled in her fear. But there was something more, something like a promise. The walls whispering her name, she clawed at the floor, dragging herself away from the mirror's hold. But then a chilling realization hit her. The whispers weren't just echoes, they were voices, familiar voices of those who had come before her, each one swirling in a maelstrom of despair. She could hear their stories intertwining in a tangle of emotion and terror. Molly pulled herself up, staring defiantly at the looming black mass that swirled in the mirror. "I want to go with you," she shouted, her voice shaky but resolute. The shadows paused, a flicker of surprise crossing their sinister forms. Suddenly, the door flew open and gasped for air, and a gust of wind swept into the room, swirling dust and petals into an ethereal dance. The laughter returned, louder, more manic, ricocheting off the walls like bullets. She didn't wait to think, she sprinted toward the escape, heart pounding like a war drum, the energy of the shadows clawing at her heels, trying to drag her back. As she raced through the hallway, the laughter shifted, blending into anguished cries. The air thickened, and the very walls seemed to pulse with malevolence, as if they were alive. With one last push, she reached the front door, yanked it open, and stumbled onto the porch, gulping the fresh air as though she'd been submerged underwater for too long, but as she turned to look back, dread melted into confusion. The house stood silent now, a shadow of its former self. No laughter, no whispers, just a lingering emptiness. Had it all been in her head? Questions flooded her mind, gnawing at her thoughts, then she heard it again, the soft mocking laughter drifting through the trees. It came from behind her, echoing in the wind. Molly's breath quickened. She spun around in dread but saw no one. Had she truly escaped? Or did the house still claim her soul? The hairs on her arms stood on end, and just then, a voice cut through the silence like glass breaking. "You can't run forever, Molly, we're always watching." Her blood ran cold. What had she unleashed? What was left to confront on her journey through the horrors of Willow Lane? The darkness in her own heart might just be the scariest vision yet. Molly stood frozen on the porch, her heart racing in a staccato rhythm that echoed the sinister whispers still tugging at her mind. Shadows loomed around her, dark shapes flitting in and out of the corners of her vision, wrapping their tendrils around her like creeping vines. She felt the air shift heavy, pregnant with dread and anticipation. Just breathe," she whispered to herself, though each breath came in short gasps. She had escaped the house, but the weight of its presence clung to her like a shroud. That laughter, that terrifying promise of being watched, it chased her into the fading light. With trembling hands, she fished out her phone, the screen flickering to life against the encroaching darkness. She needed to call someone. Friend, family, anybody who could pull her back from the edge of this nightmare. But her fingers faltered, paralyzed by the very thought of sharing the depths of her fear. What if they didn't believe her? What if it only made everything worse? Suddenly, the laughter rang out again, this time louder, more sinister. It came from behind her, near the house's gaping maw of a doorway, as if the shadows themselves were taunting her. Molly could feel an icy tendril of fear wash over her, creeping beneath her skin. Was that an echo of her own laughter, twisted and distorted? No, she whispered, stepping back instinctively. The trees swayed in the dusk, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. They had become witnesses to her terror, and the world around her felt alien, unfriendly. Taking a deep breath, she turned to the path leading away from the house and forced her legs to move. Each step felt heavier, but she was bolstered by the instinct to survive, to escape. She stepped down into the fading daylight, every shadow underfoot threatening to swallow her whole. As she walked, her mind spiraled into chaotic thoughts. What had she experienced? Was it real or fantasy, a cruel trick played by her imagination? But then, she remembered the reflection in the mirror, the otherworldly figures reaching for her. Their hunger felt tangible. And the whispers, they felt like chains binding her to a fate she was running from. The road twisted ahead, ever deceptive in the twilight haze. Molly tried to focus on the mundane, the smell of damp earth, the fading colors of the sunset. But just as her heartbeat began to synchronize with the rhythmic sound of her footsteps, a high-pitched scream cut through the air, a sound that felt too real and too near. Her stomach dropped as terror shot through her veins. "Molly!" The voice rang sharp, familiar yet unrecognizable, echoing down the path. Her heart clenched. Was it someone playing a sick joke? A desperate call for help? She froze, scanning the trees, trying to pinpoint the sound. Then she saw movement, a figure darting through the woods, a flicker of white in the shadows. Fear and curiosity tugged at her, but underneath it all, a creeping dread warned her to turn back. "Molly!" The voice called again, this time laced with a trembling urgency. "Please help me." She took a hesitant step toward the sound. "Who is there?" Her voice trembled, barely above a whisper, but the only response was a rustling sound as the figure vanished into the shadows. Panic surged back, crashing through her chest. Her instincts screamed at her to run, to escape not just the house but whatever lay ahead. But something deeper within, a fragile thread tugging at her conscience, urged her forward. What if they could help? What if they too knew the nightmares of Willow Lane? She took a deep breath, steeling herself. "I'm coming!" She called out, unsure if the voice was merely a manifestation of her own fear or a chance at salvation. With determination, she pushed into the tangled underbrush, each step leading her deeper into the unknown. But the shadows stretched longer, the darkness whispered her name, and the thrills of fear loomed ever closer. Would she uncover the truth or be ensnared by the same horrors that haunted her? The night was just beginning and it wasn't finished with her yet. The air thickened as Molly plunged deeper into the woods, each step muted by a carpet of leaves and shadow. The once familiar sounds of the night crickets chirping, a distant hoot of an owl seemed to be swallowed by an oppressive silence. It was unnerving, the way the world felt so alive yet utterly still, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. "Molly!" The voice soared again through the trees, pleading and desperate. It felt real, unmistakable, calling to her from somewhere close, and yet, dread wrapped itself tighter around her heart, squeezing. With a quiet resolve, she pressed on, her breath hitching in her throat. Was this a chance to break free from the entropy of her own terror? Or was she walking into a trap woven by dark forces that had marked her as their own? The trees closed in around her, their twisted trunks like grasping fingers. "Who are you?" She shouted into the dark, her trembling voice bouncing off the bark. The weight of the silence fell heavily in response, pressing against her ears in a way that made her skin pull tight with fear. "Please. I can't. I want to get out on my own." The urgency in the voice morphed into something else, something that sent a chill straight down her spine. Molly steeled herself, moving toward the sound, brushing aside low-hanging branches that snagged at her clothes like foreshadowing fingers of doom. The light of the moon filtered through the trees, bathing everything in an eerie silver glow. She couldn't see the figure, but the conviction in the voice beckoned her deeper. "I'm here!" She cried out, heart racing wildly, each beat like a drum signaling her approach. Suddenly, the brush cleared, revealing a small clearing bathed in silvery moonlight. In the center lay a woman, collapsed on the ground, tangled in weeds. Her clothes were tattered, her eyes wide as she searched the darkness. "Molly! You finally came." The woman's voice trembled, relief mingling with fear that seeped into her every word. "Are you okay?" Molly rushed forward, squatting beside her, but the woman shook her head vehemently. "No. You have to get out of here." She gasped, wrapping her arms around herself as if fighting off cold fingers that no one else could see. "They're close. They're always watching. You have to run." "What? Who?" Panic surged in Molly's chest. The shadows around them felt alive, pulsing as though listening. But before the woman could answer, a rustling echoed from the tree line, sharp and deliberate. The branches snapped as something emerged, a silhouette, dark against the night, its form impossibly wrong. "Run!" The woman screamed, but it was too late. Molly felt a presence circle behind her, its coldness creeping into her back, paralyzing her. Without thinking, she grabbed the woman's forearm and pulled her up, adrenaline fueling her movements. They sprinted towards the path, the noise in the underbrush growing louder, like a beast waking from its slumber. Branches whipped against their skin as they careened through the underbrush, shadows rapidly multiplying around them. Molly's heart pounded loudly, drowning out the echoes of whatever pursued them. The moonlight slipped away, swallowed by an impending darkness that loomed closer with each breath. "Is it behind us?" Molly dared to ask, breathless. "Yes." The woman's voice quivered as her grip tightened. "It wants us." The pressure in Molly's chest grew, squeezing the air from her lungs. She could almost feel the entity's malevolent gaze, 1,000 unseen eyes latching on to them like an oppressive fog. Just as hope began to dwindle, a break appeared, a space between the trees that looked familiar. The road. The glint of streetlight beyond. But before they could reach it, a howl erupted through the air, primal and raw. Molly turned, terror gripping her soul. The figure stood there, vast and shadowy, eyes like coals burning brightly in the night. It moved with a graceful menace, flowing forward as if the very essence of darkness had come to life. Horrified, she stumbled back, dragging the woman with her. "We can't let it catch us." As they sprinted toward the road, the howl morphed into haunting laughter, echoing through the treetops, mocking their desperate flight. Every ounce of instinct urged them to flee, yet Molly felt an inexplicable pull to turn and face the shadow. But the edges of fear blurred her thoughts. Should they fight or run? What horrible destiny awaited them if they turned back? In that moment, they burst into the open, the streetlight shining brightly down upon them, but the laughter grew louder, reverberating in her ears. What would happen next? Would they escape, or would the shadows of Willow Lane claim them both? The question hung in the air like the heavy mist rolling in, and as the laughter swelled, Molly felt the ground shift beneath her feet. A final decision awaited, and the darkness was closing in. Molly's heart raced as they tumbled into the light, but the warmth did little to chase away the chill of terror wrapping around her. She glanced back, the shadow's laughter fading but still echoing in her mind like a death knell. The woman clutched her arm tightly, breathless, eyes wild with the sheer panic of the moment. "Where do we go?" Molly panted, desperation spilling from her voice. "What now?" "Not here. We can't stay. They'll find us." The woman's glossed eyes darted around, scanning the edges of the light as if the darkness might reach out and snatch them at any moment. Molly felt the weight of the night press down on her again, as if the darkness itself were a living entity waiting for the opportune moment to strike. "Who are they? What do they want?" She pressed, feeling foolish for pushing her panic onto someone so clearly distressed herself. The woman took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I'm Sarah," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder, "and I can't explain everything right now, but they feed on fear. They're drawn to it like moths to flame." "Great, just great. So, what are we suddenly running a marathon for our lives?" "Look, we don't have much time." Sarah's voice pierced through Molly's spiraling thoughts. "We need to find shelter before they regroup." Before they could react, a sound tore through the quiet. A twig snapped loudly nearby. Steely silence enveloped them again, then a low growl reverberated in the air, primal and hungry. Both women froze, staring into the darkness that pressed at the edges of the streetlight's glow. "Run!" Sarah screamed and turned, pulling Molly further into the streets. The asphalt felt surreal under their pounding feet, a stark contrast to the perilous freedom of the woods. As they rounded a corner, an old, abandoned building came into view. The facade sagged, its windows like hollow eyes staring into their souls. It was a decrepit ruin, but for they needed. They rushed toward it, breathless, adrenaline thrumming through their veins. "Is it safe?" Molly gasped, pausing to look at Sarah, whose face was gaunt with fear. "No," she replied, "but it's better than being out there." She motioned for Molly to follow her inside. The door creaked open, and they slipped into the dark interior. Inside, the air was thick and musty, dust floating like tiny ghosts in the weak light filtering through broken windows. Shelves were overturned, remnants of someone else's life sprawled across the floor. Sarah hurried to a far corner, arranging debris to block their exit. With shaking hands, Molly joined her, every creak of the old wood heightening her anxiety. They listened intently, the rhythmic pounding of their hearts the only sound that dared to break the silence. "Do you think they'll follow us?" Molly whispered, glancing toward the shadows. "I don't know," Sarah replied. "But we need to be quiet. If they find us, it's over." As the weight of fear bore down on them, Molly felt a surge of courage. "We can fight, we can't just hide forever." Suddenly, the shrill laughter cut through the dark. It was closer now, unsettling and electric. Shadows danced along the walls, each flicker pulsing with the sinister rhythm of something alive. "Shoo!" Sarah hissed, eyes wide with dread. "They're here." Just then, a cold breeze swept through the room, making the hairs on the back of Molly's neck stand on end. The shadows flickered, growing restless, flowing toward them like a dark tide. Panic surged, and Molly tried to pull Sarah toward the door, but it was too late. The eerie laughter surrounded them, engulfing them in a suffocating cocoon of despair. The darkness thickened, almost tangible, and that chilling gaze, those eyes like burning coals, pierced the shadows before her. "Look out!" Sarah shouted, just as the fabric of night unspooled around them, but Molly felt her feet glued to the floor. The light from her phone flickered, dimming her lifeline in the suffocating blackness. What would they face next? The darkness had them cornered, but neither was willing to surrender to the night. Would they conquer the shadows or become part of the encroaching horror? As the laughter echoed cruelly, a figure lurked just beyond the collapsing light, and all hope hung by a thread, trembling in the heavy air. Molly's heart thudded wildly, the laughter piercing through her like shards of glass. She couldn't see the figure, but she could feel it, a presence that coiled and slithered just outside the reach of their fading light. "Sarah!" she whispered urgently, but the words felt swallowed by the darkness, heavy and thick. "Stay quiet!" Sarah hissed, her breath hitching as she pressed herself against the wall, trying to blend into the crumbling plaster. The shadows pulsed and swayed, almost alive, and a low growl rumbled from somewhere deep within the depths of night. It was a sound that seemed to vibrate in Molly's bones, chilling her to the very core. She felt a surge of primal fear, clawing at her throat. A moment passed, an eternity suspended in dread. And then, from behind the edge of their meager sanctuary, the figure stepped into the dim light. It was humanoid, tall and impossibly thin, with elongated limbs that moved with unsettling fluidity. Its face was obscured, shadowed by a cloak of darkness that seemed to cling to it like a shroud. Blood-red eyes glowed with malevolence, locking onto Molly and Sarah with a hunger that made their skin crawl. "Flee, flee, flee!" A voice shrieked from somewhere deep inside her, a primal instinct to run. But she was rooted to the floor, terror paralyzing her limbs as its gaze pierced through to her very soul. "Molly, we have to go." Sarah's voice broke through the haze, desperate urgency pushing her forward. "Now!" With a sudden burst of adrenaline, Molly shook off the fear, bolting toward the jagged outline of the door. She could feel the creature's gaze boring into her back. They barely made it to the entrance when a bone-chilling shriek erupted from the creature, echoing through the building. It sounded like it was tearing at the fabric of reality itself, and it lit a fire of fear in Molly's heart. "Keep moving," Sarah urged, her voice a fierce whip in the air. Molly stumbled out into the night, the world outside swallowed in shadows but oddly still compared to the chaotic grip of the building's darkness. They ran blindly, feet pounding against the cobblestones. But just as relief flickered in her chest, a harsh laugh followed them, cutting through the night, a mockery of their escape. "Which way?" Molly gasped, frantically looking around as the town unfurled before her. A street lamp cast a weak glow onto a fork in the road. "Left!" Sarah yelled, pulling her toward the narrow alley that veered off the main path. The darkness clung like a fog, wrapping around their legs, making every step feel like wading through thick tar. Behind them, the laughter twisted in the air, echoing with an otherworldly resonance. It seemed to vibrate through Molly's bones, feeding off their fear. She felt it, an insidious pull urging them to stop, to turn, to look back. "Don't listen," Sarah shouted, keeping her eyes fixed ahead. "We can't stop." Just as they turned a corner, Molly lost her footing, and a surge of pain shot through her ankle. She stumbled, sprawling against the cold ground. "Get up. We can't stop," Sarah urged, her own fear igniting as she looked back. But the shadows were beginning to come alive again, swirling like smoke. They seemed to pulse with energy, tugging at Molly's limbs. She pushed herself up, mind racing, breath ragged. "Keep going." They dashed into another side street, desperation fueling them as they twisted into another alley. Molly caught a glimpse of flickering lights ahead. Hope. Or another trap. "Sarah, what if this doesn't end? What if it just keeps coming?" The answer hung in the air, thick and palpable. Sarah met her gaze, determination burning in her eyes. "Then we fight. We face it together, no matter what." Just then, a guttural growl erupted from behind, promising that the shadows were not done with them yet. With renewed resolve, they pushed forward, racing toward the light that danced like a beacon in the smothering dark. But as they neared the light, an overwhelming darkness descended behind them, engulfing everything they left behind. What awaited them at the end of the alley? A salvation, or an even darker horror? The laughter crept back, the taunting echo trailing behind them, as the shadows loomed ever closer. Molly took a deep breath, ready to charge into the unknown, heart thundering. Would they find safety in the flickering light, or a confrontation with the very essence of their worst fears? Only one thing was certain: once they stepped into that light, there would be no turning back. The moment they burst into the light, Molly felt a rush of warmth, but the relief was short-lived. The light glimmered, flickered, then suddenly dimmed, revealing a narrow exit that led deeper into another alley. The laughter behind them was gone, replaced by a sinister silence that filled the space. "Where are we?" Sarah whispered, scanning their surroundings, her breath still quick and shallow. The alleyway around them was lined with brick walls coated in graffiti images of eyes and scream-like mouths, all somehow alive in the waning light. "Just keep moving," Molly replied, forcing herself to step forward. With every stride, her pulse quickened. The feeling of being hunted stung at her skin, reminding her they weren't free yet. They pressed through the alley, the oppressive walls closing in. The silence was deafening, but the air felt electric, a tension that made Molly's skin crawl. It was as if something unseen was watching them, waiting for just the right moment to strike. Then they heard it, a soft whisper, barely audible but unmistakable. "Molly. Sarah." It slithered through the air, chilling them both. "Did you hear that?" Sarah's voice trembled as she held Molly's arm. Before Molly could answer, a shadow darted past them, a blur of movement that made her heart lurch. They exchanged a frightened glance. "Go," Molly urged, breaking into a sprint. The two girls ran, their feet pounding against the uneven pavement, searching for an escape from whatever lurked in the darkness behind them. The alley twisted, constricting around them like a snake coiling its prey. Just ahead, there was a rusted gate, partially ajar, leading out into the neighboring courtyard. "Over there," Molly shouted, pointing to the gate. They crashed through it, tumbling into a decrepit yard filled with old tires and broken furniture. A faint flicker of moonlight illuminated the space, offering a momentary illusion of safety. "Now what?" Sarah gasped, staring at the towering shadows created by the trees surrounding the yard. Molly's eyes darted around. There was no sign of the creature. Just then, she noticed something beneath an overturned chair, a glint of silver. "Wait," she said, moving toward it. As she flipped the chair aside, she revealed an old flashlight. Heart racing, she clicked it on, its beam sending a warm glow into the surrounding darkness. "Good find," Sarah said, relief washing over her, but it was short-lived. The light flickered, straining against the shadow's grasp. "We need to keep moving. This yard can't be safe." Molly nodded, gripping the flashlight tightly. She guided them toward the far end, where they could see another gate that led to the street beyond. As they approached, the air thickened, pressing down like a weight. The shadows they had fled from felt closer, creeping from every direction. Suddenly, the flashlight flickered and then went dark. Darkness swallowed them whole. Panic surged through Molly, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Sarah!" she cried, voice quaking. "What do we do?" Silence filled the air, replaced by a deep growl echoing from within the shadows. An overwhelming sense of dread clawed at her throat, stealing her breath. "Stay close." Sarah's whispered command was barely audible as they huddled together. Then, from the thick shadows, a powerful wind swept through the yard, chilling them to the bone. "Molly, Sarah!" The whispers returned, taunting, teasing, wrapping around them like smoke. "No!" Molly screamed, taking a step back, but there was nowhere to retreat. The growl grew louder, closing in on them, and the shadows pulsed with a life of their own, reaching for the girls. In that moment, clarity struck. They were being toyed with, the darkness playing a cruel game. They had to break free, find the strength to fight back. Just as the shadows loomed larger, a gentle light appeared at the edge of the yard, beckoning them. "Look!" Sarah gasped. "That way!" Hope surged through them, but as they turned to run toward the beacon, an icy grip seized Molly's ankle. She fell, eyes wide with terror, as she was dragged back into the thick shroud of darkness. "No!" Sarah pulled, but the shadows seemed insatiable, hungry for their fear. Molly struggled, panic rising, when suddenly she felt something cold touch her shoulder. She froze, feeling the chill wash over her like water, paralyzing her in place. Was this it? Had they come too far to face the end? But then she heard a soft voice, louder now, breaking through the entrapment. "You have the power, Molly. Remember." And in that moment, the whispers receded, replaced by the frantic beat of her heart. All was silent as she gathered her strength, ready to confront the darkness that threatened to consume her. What awaited them in that light? Would they find salvation, or would the shadows claim their souls forever? Molly tightened her grip, ready to fight back, holding on to the only glimmer of hope she had left. Molly felt the chill creeping up her spine, a nasty reminder of the shadows reaching for her, hungry and relentless. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she whispered back, "Remember what?" The voice, soothing yet urgent, was a lifeline amidst the chaos. "Find your strength, you are not alone," it urged, echoing through her mind like a forgotten melody. Taking a deep breath, she closed her eyes briefly. A flash of light pierced her memory, the image of her grandmother's old box of treasures. "I have to remember," she exclaimed, and in that moment, clarity spilled in. The stories her grandmother shared about courage, the magic of love defeating darkness. Molly had the power to fight back. "Sarah, we can't give up," Molly shouted, her voice stronger now. She pushed against the grip of shadows still latched onto her ankle, her heart pounding with determination. With a surge of resolve, she reached for the echo of light at the yard's edge. It flickered at first but grew brighter, urging them like a lighthouse in a storm. "Together!" she called to Sarah, who nodded and grasped Molly's arm, anchoring her strength beside her. The growls surged again, deep and feral, vibrating through the ground and rattling their bones. "Run!" Molly shouted as she pulled Sarah toward the light. The icy fingers retreated momentarily, unwilling to let them go, yet something inside Molly flickered to life, burning bright as the threat loomed. As they raced, the shadows clawed and hissed, but Molly powered forward, fueled by raw adrenaline. The light was real, illuminating the path with hope and fire. Just as they reached the edge of the yard, Sarah stumbled. "Molly!" she cried, her gaze wide with panic as the darkness reached for Sarah's legs, pulling her back. "Don't let go." Molly yelled back, digging her nails into the dirt as she pitched backward, trying to pull Sarah from the abyss, but darkness was now swirling around them, and the whispers crescendoed into a cacophony of malevolent glee. "You think you can escape?" they jeered, the voices blending into a symphony of terror. Molly's heart raced with the weight of despair, but she remembered the warmth from the light. With every ounce of defiance, she screamed, "Let her go." Serpent fury flowed through her, and in that moment, a pulse of brilliant light erupted from within her. The shadows screeched, recoiling as it burst forth with brilliance. It radiated around them, glowing fiercely against the encroaching evil and surrounding Sarah like a protective barrier. As the darkness shivered and retracted, Sarah felt the icy grip loosen. She scrambled to her feet, throwing herself into Molly's arms. They clung together, enveloped by the radiant light that banished the shadows back into the corners of the courtyard. Breathless and shaky, Molly grabbed Sarah's hand. "We have to push forward. That way." She pointed toward the glowing pocket of light they had noticed earlier. In that instant, the shadows fumed, hissing against the brightness, but it was weakening. The air felt lighter, charged with possibility. They moved, still clutching each other tightly, breaking through the barrier of darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. Pulsing with newfound strength, they burst through to the other side of the courtyard and found themselves in an open area bathed in silvery moonlight. The oppressive atmosphere lifted. What just happened? Sarah breathed heavily, glancing back toward the darkness that now seemed distant, a fading nightmare. "I don't know, but we have to keep going." "It's not over yet," Molly replied, scanning the perimeter, her instincts still alert. Whatever had chased them was not going to let them go without a fight. Ahead, a darkened figure lingered at the edge of the trees, a silhouette watching them, silent, waiting. "Who is that?" Sarah whispered, her eyes narrowing. Molly's heart plummeted. "We need to find out, and fast. That's not just any shadow." The figure stepped closer, a mix of darkness and menace, and they exchanged one last searching glance, the realization that their fight was only just beginning. But what lay in store for them in this new confrontation? Would they uncover the truth or face the ultimate reckoning? A hushed stillness enveloped the clearing, moonlight casting shimmering patterns on the ground as the figure stepped forward. The shadows danced, wild and unpredictable, merging with the darkness draping the figure like a cloak. Molly narrowed her eyes, trying to discern the creature's form, heart pounding against her ribcage. "It's getting closer." Sarah squeaked, clutching Molly's arm as she instinctively stepped behind her. The warmth of their shared light flickered, dimmed for just a heartbeat under the weight of uncertainty. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper now. "What if it's not friendly?" The truth hit Molly. Terror wasn't just behind them anymore, it was right in front of them. She could feel it, an electric thrill that sent icy tendrils along her spine. With a deep breath filling her lungs, she forced her voice steady. "We won't know until we confront it. Together." The figure emerged fully from the shadows, tall and skeletal, its elongated limbs stretching unnaturally under the moonlight. A hollow sheen of eyes blinked down at them, devoid of warmth. The air felt thick, suffocating, as it opened its mouth, revealing rows of sharp, glinting teeth that caught the light ominously. "Why have you come?" it rasped, voice like gravel crunching underfoot. We just escaped the darkness." Molly's voice trembled but held a hint of defiance. "We are not afraid of you." The figure tilted its head, as if amused. "Fear is instinctual, little one. You cannot outrun what lives within." "What do you mean?" Sarah's voice was shaking, barely masked under the threat of danger. "The shadows, the whispers, they are part of you. Your fears will always chase you, unless you learn to confront them." Molly bit her lip, realizing the truth in those words. Memories flashed through her mind like a rapid slideshow: self-doubt, anxiety, times of feeling utterly lost. Shadows, indeed, had lingered inside her all along. But she had to think clearly. If they were to survive this confrontation, they needed to face the inner turmoil she'd fought for so long. Molly took a step forward, forcing herself to look the figure in the eyes. "We came here for the light, for hope." The creature laughed, a sound slick and dark. "Hope is but a transient glow easily snuffed out by the truth you hide." "What truth?" Molly shouted now, a surge of strength ignited within her. "You don't scare me. I know what I am and who I can be." As her words hung in the air, the dark figure wavered for a moment, flickering like a dying flame. If she had power over her fears, maybe that power could weaken this entity too. The air thrummed around them as a flicker of light sparked in Molly's chest. With confidence brewing in her veins, she raised her hands, channeling the energy that surrounded her. "You are not real. You are just a shadow of my fears." The shadows around her twisted and screamed as her light pulsed fiercely, illuminating the area. To her astonishment, the figure screamed, disintegrating into a swirling mass of darkness, scattering among the trees, but as the darkness faded, a new gust of cold wind swept through the clearing, freezing Molly in her tracks. Another presence stirred behind her, a deeper, more sinister shadow creeping from the trees, darker than the first. "Molly, what is happening?" Sarah's voice was tight with fear, her grip tightening around Molly's hand. In that moment, they turned, heartbeats racing in sync as they faced yet another foe, reality crashing down on them. The night, it seemed, had only begun its relentless assault. But what are we really fighting against? Are we ready for what lies ahead? Molly thought, her mind racing. The figure loomed larger, and as it approached, she knew one thing was certain: despair was never far behind. Sudden movement caught her eye, a glint of something hidden within the surrounding shadows. A secret lay ahead, and perhaps their very survival depended on uncovering it. Molly stood at the edge of the clearing, her heart drumming in her chest like a war drum. The looming shadow before her was insatiable, darker than the void itself, whispering horrific promises that clenched her gut with dread. "What's happening?" Sarah's grip tightened on Molly's arm, her voice trembling as they faced the deepening darkness. Molly swallowed hard, willing herself to find courage in the midst of terror. "We can't let it win," she whispered back, a spark igniting within her. The warmth of camaraderie flickered like the candle of a steadfast flame, urging her to remember the truths she had unearthed. With unwavering resolve, she stepped forward, confrontation burning in her eyes. "You don't own us. We are more than fear." The creature halted, surprise flickering in its dark essence. A low, throaty laugh echoed through the trees, reverberating like thunder. "But fear is your nature, little girl. You are nothing without it." Fury ignited within Molly. "You're wrong. Fear doesn't define me." Then, from a forgotten place in her mind, memories surged forward. Visions of laughter with friends, late-night conversations, moments of pure joy when she felt alive and real. Those memories wove around her heart, fortifying it, turning her fear into an inner fire. "Sarah, think of your strength, remember who you are." Molly urged her friend, feeling the energy surge between them. With an electrifying rush they turned towards the shadow, hands clasped tight, defiantly standing together. "We take back our power." They shouted in unison, voices merging with a force that echoed through the night. As they stood firm, a blinding light pulsed from their joined hands, cutting through the shroud of darkness like a beacon. The creature recoiled, hissing, shadows clawing at its body, about to shatter. With a surge of will, Molly poured every ounce of suppressed fear and anger into the luminescence, chanting, "We choose hope. We embrace strength." The air thickened, the shadow writhed, its form twisting as the light engulfed it. Molly sensed the sinister grip weakening, and in a blinding flash, the darkness erupted in a furious shriek, dissipating like smoke in the wind. Together, she screamed again. They darted forward toward the center of the clearing, stepping into the luminous space that sparkled like 1,000 stars, but before they could celebrate, echoes of laughter erupted around them again. "You can't outpace us," the voice taunted, coiling around them. Every hair on Molly's body stood on end. Clarity unraveled inside her. They weren't just fighting the shadows, they were battling their very doubts, those demons lurking behind them, feeding on their fear and insecurities. "We are stronger," Molly cried, determination blazing in her voice. The darkness began to swirl again, furious yet faltering against the burgeoning light. "You will never escape your true selves," it shrieked, but Molly's heart was pounding louder than the darkness. She remembered the spirits of those who had fought before her, the strength that lay within her lineage. Taking a step back, she spoke slowly, "No. We define our own fate." In that moment, the shadows began to unravel, dissolving into the cool night air as the light shone brighter. Molly felt chains crumble in her chest, and with Sarah beside her, they let go of everything they had feared. Slowly, the laughter quieted until there was nothing but peaceful silence, the darkness retreating into the shadows, powerless now against their united light. They stood there, panting, the moon shining bright overhead. It was over, for now, at least. "What just happened?" Sarah whispered, her eyes brimming with relief, confusion interlaced with hope. "We embraced who we are," Molly breathed, finally able to take a deep, cleansing breath. "We turned our fear into something stronger." With the bond of their friendship stronger than any shadow, they made their way back to the path leading home, together stepping out of the dark woods and into the open arms of the night sky. As they walked, the stars winked down at them. And though shadows would always exist, they now understood they wielded the power to rise above them. That ancient house at the end of Willow Lane would always stand, whispering tales of fear and darkness, but its grip would loosen over time. They were no longer just whispers in the wind, they were voices filled with strength. Molly looked over at Sarah, whose smile felt like the dawn breaking through the night. "Let us make sure no one else has to face that darkness alone," she said, determination set in her eyes. With renewed hope and friendship lighting their way, they stepped forward into the future, leaving shadows behind. And remember, dear friends, just like Molly and Sarah, you have the power to face your fears and rise above them. Your story, your strength, your journey matters. Now, if you want to dive deeper into more unforgettable tales, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and make sure everyone gets to experience this journey. Flood the comments section with your reactions and thoughts about what just happened. I want to hear your voices, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Spread the light, everyone.